Not you.
Sorry. I'll shut up.
Brett, don't talk so loud. Wes, talk louder. Natalie.
I'm perfect.
Stop eating.
Stop eating.
I ate it.
Stop eating and drinking. Goodness.
No, I won't.
Pull it together, people. We've got to give this podcast to the world. With that being said, welcome to the Coast Range Podcast, everybody.
Hey.
We're back. Better than ever. What was that?
I almost just burped into my thing.
Oh.
So
Sounds like we went through
I just had
nose.
bubbles
Like
water.
we went through a wind tunnel.
I didn't want to subject everybody to that.
Oh my gosh. Hey guys, we're back. And today we're talking about probably one of the most important topics that we've talked about in a long time.
I'm going to film you talking about social media on my social media.
We're talking about
So
social
keep talking.
media today, you guys. Social media. As I was about to say that, Natalie's putting away her Instagram. We're talking about social media, guys, both the positive and negative effects of it, what you can do to actually use it as a tool to make you a better person, and things that you need to stay away from when you open up your damn phone to look at social media. This was Brett's idea to talk about today. He hit me up last night. He goes, hey, what if we, a few different subjects. And he said one of them was models specifically on social media and their negative effects on our self-esteem and the way we look at ourselves. Brett, why did you want to talk about this?
Just kind of seeing things before talking with my wife and talking about certain people and how viewing social media and seeing people and how it can have a negative effect on, hey, I'm not as good as this person, or how did this person get this point and so quick, it seems like.
Yeah, specifically when we're talking about like jacked and ripped and looking good, right?
Right.
So from a nutrition standpoint, like I think that's like one of the biggest issues in our society is that we see somebody who looks a certain way, has a certain amount of money, is living a lifestyle that we would like to live or whatever that is. And we get down on ourselves that we're not there.
Right.
Whether that be physically, mentally, socially, money-wise, whatever it is, we just see as we scroll through our Instagram or through our Facebook, it's like person after person after person after person that's the same age as me, maybe even has the same circumstances as I do, and is way better off than I am. So we think. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the big thing to say, right? So we think.
Well, and you're viewing everybody's highlight reel. I think that's the thing about social media sometimes. And I think that there's a lot of reality in it, but most of the time, like you're viewing the really good of other people or like the edited version.
100%.
So it's very hard because you're looking at everybody's highlight reel and all you have is your reality. And you know that it's like, I know when I look at that kind of stuff, I'm like, that is so far from my reality.
Like even my own page, right? I know that even I'll look at my own page and I'm like, man, my life looks pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And I could even have had a really rough week. And I'll look back, if I look at my week on social media, it looks like I had an amazing week.
Right.
Right? Because I only choose to post the things that make me happy. Mm-hmm. And
Sure.
the things that I'm like, oh, that was an awesome moment. I'm going to post that on social media. And I'm not trying to do it in a negative way. It's just the way it comes out.
Yeah.
And you're just trying to promote the things that are impactful or motivational for you or for other people.
Yeah.
And some kind of things. So yeah,
Right.
It makes sense.
Yeah, totally. And even like the times that I will post something that's very real. Mm-hmm. Like let's say I'm doing a lift, for example, right? And I failed this PR lift 4 or 5 times in a row, and I'll write about it in the underneath in the caption, and I'll be like, man, not a good lifting day, failed this lift 4 or 5 times, felt like crap today, didn't sleep well last night, but the video is of me making the lift. It's me accomplishing this thing. It's me making it. And we're so ADD in this world. I mean, when was the last time you scrolled through somebody's Instagram and you saw a post underneath it that was longer than one sentence? And what did you do?
No.
I don't got time for that. Scroll up. Keep going. So that person probably didn't have time to actually dive into like what I said underneath it and my feelings for the day and how I was trying to get across to people that not every day is perfect and that you're not going to have your best days. And sometimes that you got to keep pushing through those moments to come out on the other side victorious is like what I'm trying to get across. Mm-hmm. But somebody just sees me making a lift and they're like, man, I feel like crap today. I didn't make that lift. And man, I'm not as good as him. And that's all they saw because they didn't take the time to dive into it.
Mm-hmm.
Which is really good that sometimes you do post things that you did fail Like you did most recently when you're trying to do the handstand walk over the bridge, thing, and you failed on that one. Or one of the other ones
punching the hell out of the thing.
Punching the thing, or the one time I think was a clean and jerk ladder. I think you had, or a workout, one of the qualifiers for Brazil or something like that. And you were trying to get it clean, and you couldn't get a certain weight, and you were pissed. You threw the belt down. It was something it was more real. That hey, not always can we get everything. We can't PR every day.
Yeah.
So I think it was more real important that you had that, and then not always showing, hey, look at this. I just PR'd my snatch, and 2 posts before, yeah, PR'd this.
Yeah.
So,
and we wish more people would do that,
yeah.
right? We wish, and even on my standpoint, like I wish I would do it more, show the ugly side of things. But you also, I want people to look at my social media platform and to be happy too when they look at it. You know what I mean? And for it to bring them joy in some way. And so there's a balance that has to happen with it, I think. And I think that's kind of exactly what we're going to talk about today is the balance behind social media and how we can actually use it as a tool for good versus using it as a tool for negative, which is, I would, throwing out numbers, say 90% of the time is what I see. Is that somebody opens up their Instagram and they end up closing it feeling worse than when they actually opened it.
You agree?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this, you guys. I was going through, I think the first crazy place to start with this is Brett brought this up yesterday. Hey, let's talk about this tomorrow. I said, I think that's an amazing idea. So I started doing some research on it. And I just obviously went to the Googles, pulled up the Googles, started typing in the negative effects and didn't put anything else. And the first thing that popped up and finished my sentence was of social media. The negative effects of social media was the first thing that was able to pull up. I can think of a million other topics that I would put in there, you know what I mean, that would be just as scary. And
drugs, cocaine, smoking, drinking.
Exactly. And that was the first thing that popped up. So that tells us that people are recognizing this, right? Because in order for that algorithm to pull that up, that means that people type that in a lot. And they're recognizing that there are negative effects of this stuff, and they want to know why. They want to know why they're being pulled towards that. So I pulled that up, and then I sat down and started going through all this, research, which isn't very deep, to be honest with you. Like the social media hasn't been around long enough to do really long-term studies on this stuff like we've seen with nutrition or smoking or sleep or something like that. But I think within the next 20 years, we will see those long-term studies, and they're probably going on right now as we speak. And they probably took some kids who have always had social media in their life and they started studying them. And I'm sure in 30 or 40 or 50 or 60 years, we'll have this long-term study that comes out about social media and says it's just as bad for us as smoking cigarettes is in some sort of way, And so I was like, I want to look at this in a positive light. Instead of just like reading all this negative stuff about social media, I want to create a list of the negatives and the positives of social media. And can I get the positives to actually outweigh the negatives? That tells me if I'm going to delete my Instagram right now. That's what I told myself. I was like, I'm going to, if I can only find negatives in this thing, then why do I have it in my life? What's the point of it? I was able to find a ton of positives. But let's go over the negatives first. Let's start there. Okay. Just off the cuff, you guys, what are some negatives that you see in social media?
Well, like we talked about before, like how the people's body image, when you look at a picture, whether it be male or female, and you see how perfect the person is, and it has how you're reflecting on that, it's like, wow, this person looks like this. I don't look like that. I'm not worthy. I'm not doing enough.
Comparison.
Exactly.
Do you see that, Natalie?
Totally.
Yeah.
I especially work with a lot of women, and the first, I get comments on that all the time. They're making this progress, or this person's doing this, or this is like this, and it's a constant reminder of, that you are where you are now, and they are where they are now. And I guarantee that we didn't get to the places that we are right now overnight. And that's the reminder that I have to remind people all the time. Like, this didn't just happen overnight. This has taken a little while, so it's going to take a while to get to your end game. But I see comparison all the time. And it happens to me all the time.
Oh, yeah, dude, I do it all the time. I literally just went through my Instagram a couple months ago because we were coming up to Brazil and we're getting dialed in and stuff. And I would pull up my Instagram, and I follow thousands of CrossFitters that I idol, that I want to be like. I really look up to these people like Ben Smith and Scott Panchik and Rich Froning, and like they are guys that I'm constantly trying to be like them in whatever way I see, basically. Yeah. And I was thinking about that the other day, and I'm like, you know what? Like, this is really getting me down. Every time I open this up, I see, somebody snatching 275, and like I can barely snatch. Honestly, on a good day, and I'm in the gym, 225 is really hard for me. 50 pounds under what these guys are like putting up on no problem days. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like a normal weight for them to put up 275. And if they miss 275, they're probably pretty bummed. 225 for them is like warm up weight. And that is tough for me. Mm-hmm. It's just one of those lifts that really gets me down. And you've heard it a ton these last couple of weeks, Natalie, because a snatch event came out in Brazil. I have to be paired with Kelly, who's like the snatch queen and loves cycling barbells. And it's one of my nightmares. Cycling a barbell has been my nightmare since I started CrossFit. Mm-hmm. And so I'm like, getting all anxious about it. And I went through my Instagram and I unfollowed every single professional CrossFitter that there was on my Instagram. And my Instagram's awesome now. I haven't had those feelings as much anymore because I've just been like opening up and not seeing it as much. So I think that's where we can go with that with people is that you can use that as a tool of negative or positive.
Right.
Is that Connor Schmitz, one of our teammates, talks about this a lot. He's reading a book called Atomic Habits, and it's instead of creating this big goal that you just go blindly at and try to get to, is that instead you find people that you want to be like, and then you deconstruct their lives in a backwards fashion. And so you look at all of the things that it took to get that person to where they are, and you slowly work your way back until you get to the part that's closest to where you are right then, and then you take one step closer to where they are, and you try to do that thing that they needed to do to get to where they are today, but you keep doing that habit that is closest to you at this moment in this time until that becomes an actual habit for you. Not something you do with reluctancy, but that it's like as easy for you to do as it is for you to wake up and brush your teeth. That's a habit. Where you wake up, you go over, and you brush your teeth without even thinking about it because you've done it every day for your whole life. And maybe you missed it 1 or 2 days throughout your life, and the whole day, what did you do? Oh, this is gross. Oh, I can't believe I didn't do that today. Mm-hmm. And that's what you have to do. And then when you get to that one, habit becomes a habit. Now you move on to the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and the next one, until you've, a year or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years down the line, you are that person that you were idolizing on social media. So you can look those people up on social media that you want to be like, whether that be in your career or whether that be physically, whether that be mentally, whether it be money-wise or whatever it is. You're following this person. I'm following Rich Froning, right? I would love to be where Rich is in his career, where he has had 4 world titles. He has probably the biggest name in CrossFit that there is. He is an amazing human being, right? Like I can say that with true certainty. I've been around him plenty of times, and he really is an amazing human being. And I would love to be like that. But I know that even now, and I've been doing this for over a decade, that I can't get there tomorrow. But I can look at where he is now, and I could take, a million steps back from there and be like, okay, well, what should I focus on then? For me, it'd probably be my snatch. And I could just slowly pick that thing apart. So we can use those negative things that we look at on social media and turn it into a positive if we do that. So that's one of the things. I think another big one that I see negative-wise is the lack of sleep that social media causes on our health. And this is just straight comes down to that you put your phone next to your bed, and what do you do every night right before you go to sleep?
Scroll.
Yeah. Scrolling through Instagram.
Scrolling through.
It feels good. And I get it because it allows us a moment to unplug, allows us a moment I just want to be by myself for a second.
That makes me laugh. Unplug, but you're plugging in.
Totally. Exactly. Mm-hmm. And I think that this is one of the real big health implications besides probably mental health that we'll see come out of social media. So obviously depression and social seclusion that comes from social media. I think the other big health thing that we'll see is the lack of sleep part of this. So,
well, I think you mentioned before when we're talking about this about how it's now genetically affecting us.
Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit with what you called what you found the text
neck.
Text neck, yeah.
Yeah. So chiropractors have coined this term text neck. And basically, for every, I've got it written down here, 15 degrees of movement of the head forward, it adds 27 pounds to the cervical spine. And the cervical spine is from basically your brain, where your vertebrae connect into your brain, and goes down to the thoracic spine, which is about where the top of your rib cage starts. Just so you guys can get kind of a mental idea of where that is. It's your neck. It's your neck. when we have our phones that are at chest height or maybe even like navel height, and we crane our necks down to look at that phone, that creates a degree of pressure downwards. And for every 15 degrees, that's 27 pounds that we're putting on our cervical spine or our neck. And we see that, or they see an average of 60 degrees of torque on the neck down in order to look at a phone, which means you're adding 60 pounds of pressure to your cervical spine. There's some people that come back and say, well, that's not necessarily true because it's not direct pressure down on the spine from the top, but it's being loaded horizontally. But it doesn't matter because now they're seeing babies born with a reversed cervical spine because it's basically changing the evolution of our bodies. When we, for millions of years, we've stood up on 2 feet and we've had our shoulders back and our heads focused on the horizon because we were looking for threats. And so our eyes were always up, looking directly ahead to the left and to the right so that we could see if something was going to come at us or there was a threat or something in the trees or something like that. And now we don't have those threats, and so our eyes are focused down and on our phones or down and on our screens at our desks. And if that's where evolution is going and that's what we're going to be doing, then our body is going to adapt to evolution. That's why we adapted to standing on 2 feet, because we can run faster, right? And that was an evolution. We can get up and do things. So that's what our body's adapted to, and they're seeing that starting to happen now with text neck. And I see it a lot in our gym, right? Where people are just so tight through the shoulders and in the thoracic spine is so rounded that we ask them to go overhead. And it's almost like I'm not having people go overhead now for certain people because they're so tight in their upper body that putting something over their head is just going to cause some sort of a shoulder injury. And the only way that we're really going to fix that is not through a foam roller or a lacrosse ball or a band. It's through creating new habits and getting them to sit up tall, pull their head back into a good position, and pull their shoulders back. And if they can do that for 16 or 17 hours a day, that will actually reverse that.
I know Kelly Starrett always talked about his kids always have his phones looking down, and he would always, smack them in the back of the head or whatever, and always want them facing forward with the hands, having the phone straight ahead so they can look straight ahead.
Yeah.
It looks odd, but you stop developing that rounded shoulder and curved back thing.
We've all seen the grandma walking across the street with like the
hunchback.
Crazy hunchback, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what you're going towards, guys.
Osteoporosis.
You want to look like that? Keep putting your head down. That's what you'll end up looking like for sure. So, yeah, that is definitely one of the big negative effects that we're seeing is text neck, right? And so that pressure being put on the neck, and then also the lack of sleep. Those are two really big ones. What else are we seeing?
Difference in education. We talked about this before. We use it sometimes for researching vacation spots or researching things we want to work on, whether it be a movement standard. We can always look at any of the Bergners for any movements to work on. I'll use it for if there's anything I see that's a really good tip on coaching, I'll forward it to our group and say, hey, check this out.
Yeah.
Negative? You've talked about how one person thought that menstruating is a bad thing.
Yeah, this girl. So Dr. Rob Wolf, if you guys don't follow Rob Wolf, it's a good person to follow. Mm-hmm. We'll talk about filtering those people out in a second that you shouldn't follow versus people you should. Dr. Rob Wolf is a great person to follow if you guys are looking for some great education on nutrition specifically. But anyways, one of the doctors that he follows put up this just basically research paper on the understanding behind the menstrual cycle and how it became evolution in us from the ape primates and how it is. And this girl commented under it, and the scary part about the girl who actually commented on it is that I believe, don't quote me on this, but I was looked at her Instagram, I believe she's a nutritionist, and she's trying to push veganism and vegetarianism onto people, which I have no problem with. If you want to be vegan or vegetarian, I got no problem with that. It's totally fine. But here is the problem. This is what she said to this response to this research paper that, number one, this guy was making no claims about whether girls should or shouldn't. He was just stating facts. And she responded to, women aren't even supposed to have menstrual cycles. This is your room cleaning itself monthly of all the acidic foods, neurotoxins, and radiations we endure on a daily basis. Alkaline vegans and fruitarians barely ever menstruate. So she was putting out in the world that not having a menstrual cycle every month is a very healthy thing. And that if you're menstruating, you are unhealthy. And in order to become healthy, you should get rid of all of meat and processed products out of your life and become a vegan and vegetarian. Those are the people we want to unfollow, everybody. Unfollow those people. That is not good advice. And so it was great that Dr. Wobble put that up there for everybody to see and for them to comment on and have discussions on. That's where we can use this platform as awesome education or really crappy education. And so being careful with the people that you follow and the truths that you see out there is one of the definitely negative or positive effects of social media for sure. So let's talk about the positive things of social media. So negative effects, obviously, we know that they're there. Everybody knows that there's negative effects of it. Work productivity is one we didn't talk about either. That's a huge one, right? Yeah. It's like ever since social media has come around, 90% of your day, we know it. If you don't own that business and you're at your desk, you're spending about 90% of that time on social media. Probably.
Never mind, web surfing on the latest sports things or shopping or whatever else. Now you also got the phone to look at social media on there.
Yeah, so. I need new tires on my truck. I'm gonna look that up right now. Exactly. But there's tons of positive stuff, you guys, and this is what we really want to dive into, and then I want to spend most of the time talking about is how we can use social media as a positive platform to make us better people and to make us more productive and give us happier and healthier lives. And I think the number one thing that you guys can do to maximize your time on social media is what Tim Ferriss does. So Tim Ferriss is an author, a researcher, just an overall amazing guy that puts himself through some really crappy situations to come out on the other end and tell people like, hey, don't do this instead. I've done it on myself. And what he does is he looks forward to, okay, what do I want to focus on now? Whether that be for him specifically, it was like at one moment he wanted to focus on Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and he wanted to become as good at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as he possibly could. And another time he wanted to focus on nutrition and he wanted to know only about the scientific side of nutrition and how the body physiologically adapts to when we put things into our mouths. So he goes onto his Instagram page and his Facebook page and he unfollows everyone. So he has 0 people that he's following. Then he only searches out people who are experts in the field of the subject he wants to know more about. So on Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you'd follow like Gracie Jiu-Jitsu or this other guy who's amazing Jiu-Jitsu guy or whatever, so that when he pulls up his Instagram, all he sees is a huge library of experts in that field he's trying to get better at. And now it's an amazing education tool for him. And every time he pulls it up, it pulls him back to number one, what's most important that he's trying to focus on in that moment because he can get easily distracted. And then now it's just this library of information. It's like when we actually went to the library and you had to go through the catalog and you were like, okay, the book is in A14 on shelf 6. Okay, I'm going to go there and look at it. That's what he did basically to social media, which I thought was an amazing idea. And I kind of started doing that myself last night after I was researching this stuff. I started going through and I was like, okay, well, we're going into Brazil. I want to be as motivated as possible, and I want all the negativeness out of my life, and I only want to be able to wake up every day and go like, you know what, the life I live is amazing, and the place I'm at right now is awesome. So I started following a bunch of stoicism things on Instagram, and I pulled up my phone this morning, and it was like 6 quotes in a row of like, only focus on the now and be happy with what you have. And, you know, the obstacle is the way. And like, and I was like, yeah, let's go. Like, awesome. I'm excited to really start the day, even though I didn't sleep very good last night. Like, I'm ready to go. So doing that, I think is something very positive that we can do. What do you guys think? What else?
Giving yourself a break. You know, sometimes it's always positive when everything else is kind of going, you know, things we have going on in our life. It's a good way to just kind of step away and unplug by being plugged in.
Totally.
If that's a phrase that we really want to start. Nat's shaking her head. No, don't do that. But yeah, just something just to kind of just mentally unplug and just kind of be entertainment. It's just entertainment, another form of entertainment that just kind of gets them, you know, de-stress a little bit by just, you know, scrolling through and just have a laugh on Fluffy Duck or whatever it is we follow that causes a little bit of comedic relief or whatever.
Totally. I think that's awesome. As long as you've like taken that first step and unfollowed everybody who maybe has a negative, influence on you on social media, like get rid of those people first. So then when you pull up Instagram, it's like, okay, I just get to unplug for a little bit, like you said, and just kind of zone out, you know. Jordan Samuel, I think that's his name, right?
Jordan Samuel.
Is that his name?
I think so.
Okay.
I don't know.
He's a photographer for CrossFit.
Yeah.
Anyways, he started CrossFit in New England, got his name known for like doing stuff there, and now he's a really big photographer in the CrossFit world. He's an amazing photographer. And he posted something the other day, and he's like, don't be scared to be bored. Because boredom is where creativity is born. It's when we don't have anything to do in that moment that our mind has to wander, and it has to like find new creativity spots to think about things in a different way than we didn't before. And so this guy is probably busier than most of us, to be honest with you, with all of the opportunities he has and places he needs to go and, photos he has to edit and stuff like that. And he could allow himself, if he really wanted to be busy 24 hours a day probably. But he specifically takes out moments of his day to focus on just being bored. And I thought that was awesome because it allowed him time to I'm just going to allow the creativity to flow through me for a little bit. You're making me sick. Natalie is like hula dancing over here. I haven't seen her stop moving since we started.
She's doing the Stevie Wonder dance thing as she's dancing around.
Apparently I can't be bored. Well, I think one of the positives or benefits of social media can be like staying connected. I have a lot of friends in faraway lands and different countries and different states, and sometimes it's nice to just be able to keep an eye on or kind of know what's going on in other people's lives. I don't super have the capacity to be like everywhere all the time right now just because of life, job, competing, baby, who's 3, all of those things.
Yay, happy birthday, Azariah.
Wednesday. Like those kinds of things are nice to be able to kind of still stay involved with the lives of my loved ones and friends and family. And I know that we do the same. A lot of people stay up to date with Azariah and how big she is and all that kind of stuff through social media. So I'd say that's probably like one of the number ones that I use social media for. You can tell that if you look at my Instagram or my Facebook, it's all of my kid and my husband. Because that a lot of people ask me for that, and they're really cute, so I'll give it to them. So I think that can be a positive.
Yeah. I see that a lot with Megan's Instagram. She'll pull it up and she'll be like, oh my God, did you see, one of our friends or something like that? And what happened? I'm like, no, I haven't seen it at all. Because she really only follows like her friends and family and stuff like that. She doesn't follow a bunch of CrossFitters or all these other educational things. And so like her platform, when she turns on, is literally just like her catching up with friends and family and that stuff. And it allows her the opportunity to go, wow, I haven't talked to so-and-so in a really long time. I should reach out. And that's something that I don't get a lot of mine because I try to use mine for education purposes, to be honest with you. It's like where I get a lot of my stuff from. And so it filters out a lot of my friends that maybe post once every month because they just don't really care about it that much. They got more going on in their lives, and so it's a bummer. And I should probably unfollow a lot more people and follow my friends a lot more. That would be, I think, where I would have the biggest impact as far as like my actual life goes. And it would keep me way more connected with people I've lost touch with for sure. So I think after this podcast, I'm going to start doing that for sure. I think another thing that you can use it for that would be amazing is to build a business.
Sure.
Right? It's an amazing platform for people to be entrepreneurs these days. Like find something you're passionate in, and I guarantee you'll find 100,000 people out there that are passionate in the exact same thing as you. That girl who was talking about veganism and fruitarians.
It's a thing.
Yeah, like they're fruitarians. Like there's obviously a bunch of people out there that are into what she's in, and fruitarians unite.
Exactly.
Let's do this. And she can create a platform to be who she wants to be and create the life that she wants to create with it, as long as it's done correctly and you put a lot of effort into it, right? Megan's doing it right now with her beauty counter stuff. She's using it as an opportunity for her to get out to the world that, like, safer skincare is a way to do it, right? And, like, she's passionate. I've never, ever seen her more passionate about something in my life.
That's so
it's
cool.
Insane. She wakes up at like 5:30 a.m. just to work on stuff before she goes to school.
That's
and
cool.
all day long, comes home, and then after we put Joey down, she's at 8 o'clock until 10 p.m. working on it too, because she is like so dialed in on it. And Instagram is giving her the tool to be able to do that.
Right.
And hopefully in the future get to the point where she doesn't have to work anymore, and that's what she does. So that's an amazing tool as long as it's being used for the good.
Right.
Right? Because you could do that the opposite way and create a platform for really negative things.
Well, Sam and I took a class last year at church called TechWise, and it's like a really extreme class about tech. I felt like it was extreme. That's probably because I'm younger, but it was like talking about all of the negative effects of technology. And it's not even just talking about social media. It's just technology in general and how it can affect family and time and your interactions with humans and all that stuff. And it was like very much, you have to set super strict boundaries on it. And we employ a lot of that in our home.
Like what?
Like, we don't have phones at meals. Like, I don't even, like Wes was talking about the potential to pick up his phone during breakfast. And I was like, we don't even have our phones.
I did that just naturally this morning.
Yeah. And that Sam is just so serious about it. And he doesn't like it so much. And he doesn't, because he can see where it can go, that he's just very serious. So our phones aren't with us during meals. We don't watch television during meals. Occasionally, like maybe on the weekends. Like even when I come home, we talk about what we need to use our phones for. Like if there's something I haven't finished up, I'll tell Sam like, hey, I need to get this done. And then once that's done, it's gone. And he'll tell me or email all of it. We talk about before we turn the TV on, like, is this an appropriate time? Have we done not a lot of TV watching, and that kind of thing. Yeah. We've come to the conclusion together, like our daughter will never have an iPad that's supplied by us, and that's not because they can't be learning tools. I think they totally can be.
Yeah.
And I think that there are circumstances where that's great, but she'll never have her own. She could borrow mine, but until she gets to a certain age, like we just don't want that to be. I want her in the dirt, falling and getting her hands dirty more often than not.
Totally.
So what was I talking about?
About how you guys are,
the TechWise class. Yeah, the TechWise class. And I remember him, the pastor who was leading it was just talking about social media. We were on the social media topic and he pointed me out. And I was like, oh, shoot, I'm in trouble. Like, he follows me on Instagram. Like, shoot, this is bad. And he was like, do you mind if I use you as an example? And I was like, oh, man. I like locked eyes with Sam. I was like, oh, this is bad.
And then all the negative things into this
all
world.
the negatives. And I was like, shoot. And then he was like, well, essentially pointed out how it can be used as a tool for a business. At the time, I was using it for the gym that I was at. And not even doing their social media, doing my own. Mm-hmm. And his question just was, how many people have walked into your gym because of your social media? And I was like, I can't even count. Like a lot of people have come into the gym and said, I saw you on social media.
Oh, cool.
I saw your Instagram story. I looked up the gym. Like people I had never heard of in my life.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, like I guess that is a positive. And using it as a business platform and motivating people in that sense is like, it's a huge reality. And I stiff-armed it for a little while. I was like, no, there's no way. And then I started to do it more and people start to reach out more. And I'm like, whoa, that really is a thing.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And if you use it appropriately, it can totally be a positive.
It can change somebody's life.
Right.
Yeah.
And like so many people, like they're still CrossFitting at that old gym because they saw an Instagram story or they saw a post or like, and that changed their trajectory. And so I could see it as a total positive because of that.
Awesome. All right, guys. So wrapping this thing up, I think that social media can be used for negatives, definitely. But let's take control over this thing and let's use it for positives. So if you're listening to this podcast, we want you to do some actionable steps right after you finish this thing. Number one, I want you to go through all the people that you follow, and I want you to get rid of everybody who creates any type of a negative feeling in you when you look at their page. Any type of a negative feeling. Just get rid of them. Get them off of there. Don't follow them. Get them out of like your social media life, so to speak. And then number two, I want you guys to think about what it is in this moment right now and for over let's say the next month that you want to put most of your focus in, whether that's your family, whether that's your nutrition, whether that's your health, whether it's your career, and search out people within that career field who are experts in that career field and actually are doing good within that career field and start following them so that when you pull up your Instagram, it's a place of positivity and it's pushing you in the direction that you want to go. Then from there, I want you guys to make sure that you understand that no matter what you see on social media, when you pull it up, that you're great. You are awesome. And your life is good. Because you have a phone in your hand that you pay hundreds of dollars for every month. You got a family around you. If you're listening to this podcast, that means that you got something to listen to it in. And you're doing better than a lot of other people in this world. And so don't let somebody else on social media get you down. Because it's not worth your time or your energy. That is for damn sure. And then final thing is let us know after you do those actionable steps, if it helped. Do you feel more motivated when you pull it up? Do you feel like you're excited to actually look at that stuff? Do you feel like it's driving you forward into the place that you want to go? Because that's why we're doing this podcast. It's not just to give you guys, here's information, but to take that information and actually do something with it. Right. And so we want to hear from you guys if you actually did something with this, or if you didn't, why? Mm-hmm. What's holding you back? Because that's where we could probably help drive you in that direction that you want to go.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Thanks for listening, guys.
Word.
We'll talk to you later.
See ya.
Oh.